Hi, Aquarius, Sun and Rising. Welcome to your November 2025 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, as we enter November, we are in Scorpio season. Very intense, mysterious types of vibes. If you live in a place that has like 4 seasons, you know how November is, and it's got that kind of Halloweeny feel to it all month long. And so for Aquarius people, Scorpio is your 10th house of career. And so you have the sun here and you have Mars here too. So you're really feeling ambitious. And this is going, if you're listening in October, this is really pronounced when Mars is here. I'm recording this in an earlier week of October when the sun hasn't yet gone into Scorpio, but Mars certainly has. And so I'm just going to talk briefly about Mars in the 10th house because it is carrying over into November. And it's very ambitious, like I said, but the 10th house can be authority figures. So you have to be careful that those ambitions don't lead to kind of stepping on the toes of someone who is in a position of authority, because there can be this ballsy type of behavior and attitude, very pushy and even maybe arrogant, that a person is behaving, and when they have Mars in the 10th house, but maybe maybe they don't feel like they are being arrogant or pushy. Maybe they think that what they're doing makes perfect sense. So they might think they're doing something for the right reasons. But you can get ahead with this influence and you can cover a lot of territory. You might get a lot done in a short period of time, career-wise. The very next day on the 5th, there is a full, excuse me. Then on November 4th, Mars goes into Sagittarius. So it is going into that 11th house that you rule in astrology. And this can be really good for networking. The 11th house is the house of the collective. And Mars is very driven, assertive in terms of reaching out to other people. Sometimes there can be a conflict with your friends when Mars is in the 11th house. There's some kind of discord or something along those lines, disharmony. But it can also be with a group that you belong to that you may be clashing with. But it might be that you are joining with activists. Mars is that warrior energy. And in the 11th house, it can be you fighting for a cause. Because this is your domain, it might be right up your alley. On the 5th, there's a full moon at 13 degrees of Taurus, and this is falling in your 4th house of home and family. Something can come out that is connected to the home front, maybe a secret or something is ending. There's a sense of finality or a sense of accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment. If somebody is selling their home, that could be the time when the sales close. Or when you let go of a property, maybe right now it's just emotionally, but you're willing to consider leaving. This can be connected to your mother. Some people say the father, and maybe you're coming to some kind of understanding about one of your parents that, maybe in the past you were more, you didn't have the same sort of understanding about them and why they did what they did. And now that you do, it can make all the difference in how you approach them or regard them. And this can also go for your childhood. The fourth house can be your childhood, that something kind of dawns on you that is connected to your past, and you might be able to help, have closure about something because of something that you learn, or something that you, like a spiritual download that allows you to make sense of something that happened when you were young. And it could connect with one of your parents as well. On the 6th, Venus goes into Scorpio, into that 10th house. It's very good for people who are in a position of authority. They want to help you. They want to see you succeed. And it can also be money. So it could be getting a raise. Because the 10th house is at the top of the chart, this can be how other people see you, and it can be in a very favorable way. So that can help with your success. On the 7th, Uranus goes back into Taurus. So Uranus has already been retrograding, but it started out in fellow air sign Gemini, and now it is back into Taurus, and therefore back into that fourth house of home and family. And by the way, these first 4 transits are the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I mean, it's really, there's a lot going on in November. So Uranus back in the 4th house can mean a lot of kind of sudden things happening with housing issues, and that can lead to instability of some sort. Sometimes people who have Uranus transiting their 4th house can find that they have to move suddenly, or they have to move multiple times. They can't seem to have a steady place to live. Now, this again is not going to apply to everyone, but for those who it does apply, there can be this feeling of, I just want to kind of have these roots, and I'm really bouncing around. And, this is going to dissipate because Uranus will be going back into Gemini in the early months of 2026. So it's last gasp in the house of, home and family. So expect the unexpected, I guess I would say. On the 9th, Mercury goes retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius in the house that you rule, the 11th house. The 11th house is also the house of gains. So there could be some idea that you had for increasing your finances that you are thinking of employing at this time, to see if that will help or change anything. You might hear back from some friends that you haven't, or a specific friend that you haven't heard from for a while. You might be rethinking some of your long-range goals. On the 11th, 11/11, Jupiter goes retrograde at 25 degrees of Cancer. And this is your 6th house of work and health. And so there might be opportunities. And I think that with Mercury retrograde in the 11th house, and now Jupiter in the 6th house retrograding, you might be able to find, or maybe you hear back from someone that offered you a job before, and for some reason you couldn't take it. Maybe it was even a friend. There may be other things, even health regimens that you revisit, or health practitioners, health remedies, whatever. On the 18th, Mercury goes retrograde back into Scorpio. It already is retrograde, but it's going back into Scorpio, back into that 10th house. And this can indicate sometimes rethinking an actual career. Because, yeah, that's interesting because when Gemini is retrograding in Cancer, that is that 6th house, and that can be, Jupiter can be your values, your ethics are. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's necessarily that ethical. And, people who are selling something that they don't think is really helpful or could be downright harmful, that person may say, I'm not really comfortable with doing this anymore. And that might be something that you're going back over. So when Mercury goes back into Scorpio on the 18th, and it is in that career sector, that could be making you rethink your career altogether. On the 20th, there is a new moon at 28 degrees of Scorpio. So you, even with Mercury retrograde, you may still be feeling like you have some idea of what it is you want to transition into. And you may have new developments with career matters. The very next day, the sun goes into Sagittarius in that 11th house. And, your social life should start to really pick up. On the 27th, Saturn goes direct at 25 degrees of Pisces. I believe that was the same degree that Pisces first had an eclipse, a lunar eclipse in September of 2020. I think it was September 17th of 2023. Gosh, time goes by so fast. It's hard to remember. Or no, I think it would be 2024. 2024, I'm sorry. And Saturn is going direct at 25 degrees of Pisces, so the same or similar degree as that lunar eclipse over a year ago. And so this for you is your second house of earned income. So there's something going on that could be, maybe you have a major financial boost to your income with this Saturn going direct here, because Saturn can, be redoing something. When it is in your second house, I will say when Saturn is in your second house, it can be a bit restrictive for some reason, but it's usually because Saturn wants you to let go of anything that is superfluous and really be serious about your finances. On the 29th, Mercury goes direct at 20 degrees of Scorpio in your 10th house of career, so you will be more resolute as the days advance on your career direction. And then the very next day, on the 30th, Venus goes into Sagittarius in that house that you rule in astrology. And Venus in Sagittarius can be, or in the 11th house, I should say, could be, finding a love interest while you're out with your friends. It can be gains. This is a house of gains. So this can be a good time in the next few weeks going into December where your finances improve and they get a boost. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I hope that this resonates. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.